Almost 2 years later, and with one very good DLC under the name of Hivebusters, I thought of going back to Gears 5 and see how it stacks up in 2021, especially that it got some pretty good enhancements for the Xbox Series. What's up everyone and welcome to a new video. My name is Omar with Real Gamer Review, and today we are reviewing Gears 5 almost 2 years after its release. If you are watching my channel for the first time, a like and a subscribe would be hugely appreciated. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Gears 5 is a 2019 third-person shooter video game published by Xbox Game Studios for Xbox One, Microsoft Windows and Xbox Series X and S, with a few enhancements on top for the new consoles. The game is actually the 6th installment in the Gears of War series, and it is considered a direct sequel to Gears of War 4, as both games are very much connected when it comes to the story. And since we are talking about the story, as I mentioned before, the story actually takes place a few months after the events of Gears of War 4, focusing a bit more on Diaz as she uncovers the origins of the Locust and the truth behind her family's history, with some characters from the original installment reappearing. I won't be mentioning any more details about the story for the sake of spoilers, but I can definitely say it is a pretty good one. My only comment on the story is the ending, as it felt a bit unfinished. I'm pretty sure it was on purpose to prepare the players for a third installment continuing the story that started in Gears 4, but still, it is slightly annoying, as I'm pretty sure it will take some time till we see that one. As for the gameplay part, if you are a fan of the series, you will notice immediately that the game keeps most of the original game's aspects, but with new and more evolved additions. Gears 5 campaign also has one very unique feature. You never feel that they are trying to stretch the campaign with meaningless features or side quests. The campaign actually will take an average of 12 to 14 hours to beat, but most of the campaign is action-packed and will keep you asking for more without getting moments of boredom like some other games. The game features a good amount of different weapons, some are new and some were featured in previous installments, and even some classics from the very first installments. Weapons varies between heavy, light machine guns, snipers, and more. But of course, weapons are not real as other shooting games, but they are a bit more matching with the Gears universe. Coming to the enemies, the same is applied. Some enemies were featured in previous installments, especially Gears 4, and some are new. And of course, you will encounter tougher enemies while progressing throughout the campaign. The cover-based combat with characters in the game going out and in to cover is very smooth in motion, which is a good thing, as the combat in this game is unmerciful, and often you will find yourself in a defensive position, with a very low percentage of success during combat if you just start going around shooting without taking cover. Also worth mentioning, there are a few pretty cool boss fights that you will encounter during the campaign as well. The campaign is not all shooting only, there are a few small puzzles that you will encounter and you will get to solve some of them as well with your drone buddy, which is a cool drone sidekick that is very helpful, and you can control it with some simple commands to help you in battles and some of the puzzles. The campaign itself is not an open world, but it leans a bit more into the linear side, with a few missions consisting of a large map where you can move around a bit more freely to finish your objectives, and some of them you don't even need to finish in a certain order. Last thing, when it comes to the campaign and gameplay, there are some pretty tough choices that the game will make you choose from, especially towards the end. And whichever your choice is, it will affect the story and some aspects of the game, a cool addition to the game as well. So overall, for the campaign, gameplay and story, I would say all three of them are pretty good and very enjoyable. The multiplayer has three main modes. First is Versus, which is the more classic multiplayer where there are two teams against each other competing in a deathmatch, Capture the Flag, and a few more. Next we have Horde, where, as you might have guessed from the name, you get to fight for survival against intensifying waves of enemies with up to 4 other co-op players, and with each wave the difficulty and the amount of enemies increases. Then we have Escape, where you infiltrate the heart of a swarm hive with up to 2 other players, plant a deadly venom bomb, and work together to fight your way out. Some of those modes have a few other options to choose from as well before starting the game. You get to choose as well before each game the character that you would like to play with. The characters are obviously mostly from the game story and campaign. As for the weapons, as most of the multiplayer modes in different games, you get to upgrade and customize them along with some of your gear once you have a high enough ranking and points. So technically nothing extra special when it comes to the multiplayer part, but still it is pretty fun to play once you finish the campaign or if you are more into the multiplayer. Coming to the DLC, the game developers released a downloadable content expansion pack on the 15th of December 2020, and as the main game, this DLC is not long, but it is pretty good and action-packed. The campaign is mainly single-player with some of its characters added to the multiplayer playable characters, and of course, if you want, you can play it as co-op with your friends. Hivebusters is around 3 hours long and it adds 3 new characters to the series along with a few new enemies, environments, and a pretty unique boss towards the ending. The gameplay itself is almost identical to Gears 5 with just a few new gadgets added on. Hivebusters is the perfect excuse for players to return to Gears 5, and this is especially true for owners of the Xbox Series S and X, as it really shows the power of the new-gen consoles. Coming to the graphics and visuals part, I would say that Gears 5 still looks pretty good in 2021 from a visual perspective. Especially that the latest patch upgraded and optimized the game to take advantage of the power of Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S. You'll experience on the Xbox Series reduced loading times, support for quick resume, variable refresh rates, variable rate shading, and up to 120 frames per second in versus mode multiplayer. Of course, most of that is only on the Xbox Series X, with the Xbox Series S getting a few less upgrades. Visual fidelity jumps up to 4K resolution with 60 frames per second courtesy of the Ultra HD pack and Ultra Spec graphics quality settings previously only available to PC players. Still, I think the PC has the highest quality, but the Xbox Series X currently is pretty close after the new patch. The game still looks pretty good as well on last-gen consoles, as it retains the use of dynamic resolution scaling, but based on pixel counting a selection of shots from a few online reports, it seems to average out at around 1728p during gameplay, with full 2160p manifesting in less busy situations, but of course missing all the added quality settings that I've mentioned previously for the Xbox Series X. The game runs as well on 30 frames per second on the regular Xbox One and goes up to 60 frames per second on the Xbox One X. Coming to the music and audio part, this game has some pretty good audio effects when it comes to the combat and weapons, a few nice music tracks, nothing extra special when it comes to the music in my opinion, but as always I'll leave you with a few clips to judge it yourselves.
Damn it! No, we got a net! Toss a frag! Close it up! Target that drone!
Awaiting further orders.
Juvies! Take him out!
One thing to say, these papa things got to go! Damn, not us, fool!
It's ready now!
Excuse me a second, I'll be right back! Cole, where are you going?
I said I'll be right back!
Although the ending was left a bit open for a new installment, but despite that, still Gears 5 in all other aspects turned out to be an excellent third-person action game, especially in the campaign part that will keep you asking for more till the very last minute of the game. If you haven't played Gears 5 before or you missed this installment, I would definitely recommend to go and give it a try, as this game is one of the iconic Xbox console's exclusives. Alright, time to wrap this up. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video or you learned something, then leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.